and we are recording. All right, well, so welcome. I'm so happy you guys are joining me today. We're going to learn about creating future-ready activities for our blended learning classrooms. If you are already a blended learning teacher, you will, kind of understand some of the things that I talk about. Incorporating some of the touchscreen future-ready activities is definitely something that my students have enjoyed and loved. If you're new to blended learning and you're just starting out, these are going to be great things to incorporate. And at the end, I will talk a little bit about blended learning and some things that worked for me, and kind of give you maybe some tips. But if you have any questions that I don't cover about blended learning or anything, you can just feel free to ask. You can email me. I'll be happy to tell you. Maybe I can save some people the heartache of the trial and error when it comes to blended learning, because I know it can be very overwhelming at times, especially at the beginning. And then it's like, where do I go from there? So, and what do I try? What's going to work? So if I can spare someone the heartache of that, I would love to help out. All right, so let's get started. I know I have some people on here that know me really well, so bear with me. You're going to hear some things that you're like, I already know that. But for the people who don't know me, my name is Kelly New. I am a third grade math and science teacher at Rennell. This was my 13th year of teaching. And like I've already said, I love to teach in the blended learning model. Incorporating technology into the classroom gets the students super excited and engaged. It teaches them appropriate ways to use technology, not only in the classroom, but at home. It teaches them some skills that they're going to need when they're creating different work products, not only in elementary school, but in middle school and high school. I think all of these little tools that we're going to talk about today can help benefit your students too. So I love this model. I love the way that it allows me to introduce technology to students and teach them kind of the appropriate ways to use it and the safe ways to use it too. So why would I want to do blended learning, and why would I want to have this touch screen engagement in my classroom? And the reason is my students. I feel like my students deserve to have the very best. I just feel like they deserve to be excited when they come in the classroom, be engaged. So I just wanted more engagement. I wanted them to come in and not just sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil and just, it's boring. I didn't want that. I wanted them to have more understanding of what we were learning. With blended learning and having kind of the touch screen, they're getting hands-on activities. So whenever your hands are moving with your brain working, it just makes everything kind of stick a little bit better. It's a variety of different activities that help to solidify those concepts that you're teaching. I also wanted a lot more flexibility. Like I said, I didn't want just pencil and paper activities. I wanted them to have the flexibility of maybe choosing what type of work product they wanted to do, choosing what type of activity they wanted to do. And, having that flexibility to pull different things out of my toolbox for them was really appealing to me, because it does give them that choice. It gives them the choice of, do I want to do something on the computer to show my understanding, or maybe I want to build something and show, a model of what I've learned, or maybe I do want to do paper and pencil because that's more my speed. But it gives them that choice. And I feel like when students have the choice to what they're going to accomplish, then they have more ownership in it. They're going to be more excited. They're going to give their best effort. It's going to be more quality work. So that's my reasonings. You may have different reasonings. And if you have others and you want to share with me, feel free to share, because I think it's important that we kind of see how it can benefit all students. All right, so how are we going to use our Promethean panel and our one-to-one Chromebooks to promote student collaboration and engagement? If you have a Promethean panel in your classroom and you typically use it to display maybe the time or the directions for what studios or, whatever kind of classroom management type things, that's not a bad thing. And you can still do those things, but maybe sprinkle in some activities where the Promethean panel is the device and your students are using that device to manipulate and to learn. So That's why I wanted to do it. I didn't want it to be just a big TV screen that has just the date, the time, the instructions. I wanted them to actually use it for what it's used for. It's a touch screen, so let's let them touch it. So before we get started, I want you to think about something that you teach and for next year, and I want you to think about how you could implement some touch screen to that. How do you think that would benefit your students? Just a really quick think about it. I'm not going to ask you to shout it out, but that's just what I want you to kind of keep in your mind as we go through some of these examples and we start to practice the skills so that you can turn something that you're going to teach this next year into a touch screen activity. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started with Google Slide activities. Most of what we're going to talk about is in Google Slides. I really like Google Slides because it's very versatile. I can create something like a presentation like what you're seeing here, or I can create something that I need to print off for my students like a worksheet. I just love that it's very versatile and I can manipulate the size. I can move text boxes and pictures where I want them to be. And I feel like it just works a little bit better sometimes than Google Docs. Google Docs is great for other things, maybe taking notes and things like that. But if I want something that's going to be eye-catching for my students, I'm going to use Google Slides. We'll talk about some other workspace features like drawings and sheets later, but we're going to mainly focus on slides. Okay, thank you for letting me know. So yeah, if you're joining on a phone, there are going to be some features that you're not going to be able to do. For instance, when we create together, you're probably not going to be able to, split screen and bring up a new slide. So just letting you know, for that purpose, you might want to take notes and then you can come back and watch later. Okay. All right. So these are going to be all examples using Google Slides. This first example is a classic like drag and drop. What I've used here, this is a Google slide. And what you'll notice is this space right here is all the slide space. So this is like what you would normally put on that slide. It's what you're creating. It's what you would see if you hit present. It's all this middle space here. These colorful pieces on the outside, this is the dead space on the slide. So when you're in edit mode, you have your slide in the middle, and then you've got the dead space on the sides. And so the beauty of this type of activity is that you're using all of the space, the regular slide and the dead space for this little drag and drop. Okay, so my students are looking at the information in the middle, and then when they get their answer choice, they're going to drag it from the dead space over onto the corresponding question.
Sorry, Ms. Newman, I don't know if you're not sharing screen. If you're, no, I don't see it.
Be able to see it.
Was anybody else not able to see it? Can y'all see
There
it?
it goes. Yes.
I am so sorry. Sorry, guys. There you go. I thought I was sharing that screen. Maybe I wasn't sharing all my screen. I'm so sorry. Everybody can see it now? All right.
I did
Yes.
have a question
Okay.
about the dead space. Do you teach your students to like zoom out to be able to see it? Because I know sometimes like you can't really see all of the dead space, or is it automatic?
So if I'm doing this on the Promethean panel, they'll automatically see it. If I do this in Schoology, then yes, I just teach them how to do it. It's super easy. So those are just some things that like, as we're going through, as I see an issue, they're like, I don't see that space. Then I'll just stop real fast and I'll do a little mini lesson. It takes like maybe 3 minutes, no more than that, and just show them. This is how you zoom in, zoom out, make sure you can see your dead space. So it's really pretty easy, but I always introduce these also on the Promethean panel. So they know what it looks like. So if I do send it to them in Google or in Schoology as like an independent activity, they already know what to look for. I'll tell them, you're looking for a drag and drop. And they're like, oh, okay, I know what that's supposed to look like. So, you're kind of introducing things, a little bit at a time, but it's real easy just to kind of stop and say, okay, this is how you do that. And then that gives them a life skill that they're going to be able to use later. So that's that dead space. They drag it, they drop it over. What I also love about this type of activity is in the teacher notes or the speaker notes on the next slide, I will put the answer to the previous slide. Sorry, I'm clicking and it's moving. There we go. So on the bottom, you'll see that there is, number 1 was blue, number 2 is pink, number 3 was yellow or red, and number 4 is green. So after they've moved their answer choices to their to the question that it corresponds to, and they go to the next slide, they're going to be able to do that self-check. This is really great for those students who need that little bit of extra support. And this is also a great way to introduce something like this when you've only been teaching the concept maybe 2 to 3 days. So they're still very fresh with the concept. They still don't have a lot of expertise with it. So this just gives them that extra support, kind of like, oh, you're doing a good job. I got it, and it gives them that confidence that they're on the right track. It also gives them the ability to converse with their group and say, okay, well, why did we get that one wrong? Maybe we need to go back and look at it. Let's go back and see where we went wrong. Or why does this one have 2 answer choices? I mean, it's saying that it's both 1/2 and 2/4. Wonder why? Oh, 2/4 must be 1/2 because it's the exact same space. There's 2 on this side, 2 on this side. So they're getting that conversation and that dialogue going, and it's deep. Like they're 3rd graders, and these are the things that they're saying. And so, you can make it as rigorous as you want, or you can make it as surface level as you want, depending on where you are in your unit. But it really gives the students the ability to work with a partner and have that support, but also to have the support of, I can check my answers and I can talk with somebody if I'm not sure. The other thing is that I don't let a lot of students work at the same time. So it's this very small group that, gives them the ability to, everybody has a chance to touch and move and participate. So it's not just one student, monopolizing the time. Okay, so this is how I'm going to show you how to do this in a little bit in real time. But this is for you guys if you want to just go back and look at the slides. So when I create my answer choices, you're probably thinking, well, it's in edit mode. So how do my answer choices not get messed up? How do I trust that my students are not going to, make it look, too big or too small or change the answer choice completely? And there is a great hack for that. Basically what I do is I layer boxes and I glue them together with the grouping tool. So this animation is just showing you that I've made a blue box. I typed the answer in that blue box, and then I put another box on top of it and I make it transparent so you can see through it. It's like looking through a window. And then I just glue the transparent box and the blue box together using the group tool. So we'll practice that a little bit later. But this is how I make those answer choice pieces so that they can't change them, they can't move them. It makes it to where, they're only touching that transparent box, and that transparent box doesn't have anything in it, so to speak. Okay. And then if you don't want your students to move around your questions, because you're probably thinking, but what about my questions? I worked really hard, or I made those really cute graphics. I don't want them to mess it up on accident. There's another hack for that, and it's called, now it's called, the master theme. It used to be like the master slide, but now it's called themes. And essentially you're taking whatever you create in your slide and you're putting it in this theme here, and you're creating different layouts. So for here, I just made a layout in that theme. And then I went in and I just selected the theme I wanted. And then what you're going to notice is they can't select anything now. So everything that is on this slide here is basically like in the background. They can't manipulate it. They can't, change the wording because you can't select anything, because it's essentially like an image in the background. And so we'll work on that too today when we create in just a little bit. But this is how I make it to where literally they can't mess anything up. So when I just give them the freedom to go to the board to work on this, Very rarely do I have to fix an issue because I've ensured that everything is kind of glued and put in the background. All right, I'm going to show you kind of how this works in the classroom. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some other things. So here are my students. This is from this year. They're doing the same drag and drop we just kind of talked about. But I want you to listen to how they're talking to each other. Notice how there's 3 students here. Typically in my blended learning groups, there's 6. So 3 of those students, what I do is when I have an activity like this on the Promethean panel, I make sure that my future ready studio is cut into 2. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that half of my students are doing the panel and then half of my students are doing another future ready activity like task cards, or maybe they're building with fraction towers or something like that. They're doing something other hands-on, and they just split their time. So instead of it being a 12-minute studio, now they're making each of those pieces a 6-minute studio. So they'll spend 6 minutes on the panel and 6 minutes on another hands-on activity. And that's just a really simple, quick talk with them before we get started. This is actually the first day that they've done a drag and drop in this class. So this is their first, try at it. And I want you to see how well it works. I mean, they've never done one before. And they manipulated the board perfectly. Every single group did a beautiful job. I wish I could have taken a video and shown you every single one from my class, but that would be too much. But they just did a beautiful job, both classes. So actually, I'm gonna have to share for a second. Let me go in here and I'm gonna unshare my screen because I realized that I didn't click on the box to make sure that y'all can hear my audio. We'll try that again. Okay. All right, here we go.
Which fraction on the number line? Ooh, it does sound like you did the hard. This is so hard because there's 2 stuff. But then when it asks for the heart, but then only one is easy. That's extra. Stop. Yeah, but you can't see it. So it asks for the heart, not the star. So you just let it go. So like 1, 2. Those are 8 groups. This is how I like to do it. 4. Okay, that's 8. Yeah. No, wait, go look. But it's saying the heart.
So what fraction of it is heart?
1 8, 2 8, 3 8, 4 8, 5 8.
Okay.
5 8. Okay.
Okay, so they are communicating with each other. One of them is like, no, they're talking about the heart. You can't see on that screen very well, but there were 2 different symbols. I had one as a star and one as a heart. And so I wanted them, and the question was, what fraction on the number line represents the heart? And so they had that extra information. He kept saying, there's extra information, like I see it. But they worked so well together. And I love that they were, they had already decided who was going to get to start with the dragging and the dropping. So that's another one of my things that I asked them to do is, when you go there, you've got literally about 10 seconds to decide who's going to touch first, second, and third. And then you repeat that order, first, second, third. Because I want them to all have the ability to touch and move. There shouldn't be one person who's doing all the moving because that's not fun for the other people. This works for your middle schoolers, it works for your high schoolers. If they're all touching at the same time, yes, it's going to be mayhem because they're going to mess something up. But just that really quick, as I'm giving those instructions, all right, so when you get here, remember, you've got 10 seconds to decide who's first, second, third to touch, and then you repeat that order. And they're like, okay. And they did it. I mean, these are 3rd graders. So I feel like if our 3rd graders can do it, so can our middle schoolers and our high schoolers. They can all take turns and share. All right, let's move on. This is another type of drag and drop. again, it was comparing fractions, but this one, I didn't do it on the Promethean panel. This one I literally sent in Schoology, and I wanted to do it as a formative assessment. So at this point, we had been working on comparing fractions for a while, and I needed to know, do you get it? But I wanted it to be super quick, fun, and easy. And so I just sent it in Schoology, and they literally just quickly drag and dropped all their answer choices and submitted it. And what I love is that I color coded everything. So like every one of the equal signs were pink. All of the greater than signs were green, and the less than signs were yellow. And the reason I do that is because I know for myself, I'm a very visual person, and I associate colors to different things. So I know my students do the same thing, and it helps them to remember if they're moving really quickly, they don't accidentally get the symbols mixed up, because they know that green is going to be greater than, yellow is going to be less than. And also it made it a really easy way for me to pull it up in Schoology and quickly grade it. I can literally look at the slide, all the slides in order, and see what they picked. And so I didn't have to scroll to all the slides. I literally could just look down and go, yep, they got it right, or nope, they got one wrong. And I could easily, give them a grade for that. So it makes it easy for your students, but also makes it easy for you, because you can easily check it because you're just looking for the colors. Any questions so far on that type of drag and drop? No? All right. Okay, we're going to move on then. Let me make sure I don't have anything in the chat. Nope, we're good. All right. Okay, this is another type of activity that I've done. It's called Out of This World. Let me give you some background to this activity, because this has a lot of moving parts. It is a Google slide, and it works just like a slide in present mode. So it's not a drag and drop. It's literally a touch, and it links pictures to other slides in the deck that have information. And then they click the home button, and it goes back to the main page that has all the pictures. And so that's how they're getting their information. They're just picking the order that they want to go in, because they don't know the order. There's no numbers, it's just pictures. So that's how the slide works. Now, what I gave them before I gave them the slide, I gave them 2 articles. I gave them an article on Amanda Nam and Katherine Johnson. They are both female scientists who did amazing work with NASA and worked with some different space missions. So I gave them these articles about their life. Very short, it was like 1 page each. And I had them read them and use their language arts skills to show their strategies. So they had to highlight, they had to do all their, I don't know, is it TARP or whatever their strategies are in elementary. They had to do all of the things that they would normally do for my partner, Miss McCalla. So they marked up their paper, and then I gave them this slide deck with a record sheet. Now, I did all this in Schoology. I didn't print a single thing out. So they first had to read the articles, and they were able to keep them open and then in a tab. So they read their articles, they did it in Cami, they were able to mark it up. And then they pulled up their record sheet and had that in another tab where it was also in Cami, so they could write it or type on it. And then they used this slide. And I gave them the opportunity to either work with a partner or work independently. Now, my ESL students, they all chose to work with a partner. That was totally fine with me. I was not taking it as a grade on, did you do it independently? I wanted to just give them this extension activity to broaden what we have already learned and to learn something new. It's kind of like STEM. My GT students, most of them chose to do it on their own. Okay, so again, there's that choice. You can choose, who do you want to work with a partner? Do you want to work alone? And then they're using a lot of technology for this. So that's the background for how this activity worked. I will say my students loved it. It took them a while because it was very rigorous. And I was fine with that because I was using not only language arts and science time, but I also have some questions in there that had to do with math. So they had to read and they had to calculate like how long they worked there, how old they were, like all that. So I was fine with taking some of my math time to do this activity. So this is kind of how it works. I send it to them in Schoology in present mode. So just like this. And they click on the image that they want. and it jumps them to a slide in the deck that corresponds to that picture. Notice how I didn't put the names of the planets on the main page. Okay, so a lot of times I was listening to my students, they were like, I think this one's Jupiter. Yeah, let's click on this one. This one's Jupiter. And then they would get there and they'd be like, I was right, it was Jupiter, or oh, I was wrong, that one's not Jupiter. But then I had the name on the slide and it had the information, some question about either Katherine Johnson or Amanda Nam. And then they answered it on their record sheet, and their record sheet had not only the picture of Jupiter, but it also had the word Jupiter. So the pictures all corresponded to the slide that they were on. And then they just clicked on the home button when they were ready to go to another question, and they picked another image. So this is just a really great way to link images to slides. It was fun. You could do this with anything. I mean, you could do this with a story that you're reading. I think my partner read The One and Only Ivan, and it was a big unit for them. This would have been really fun to do, like, the pictures of the characters and then link it to questions that were about the book and about that character in the book, or about a scene from the book. I think that would have been a lot of fun. So this is just the slide, what it looks like. This is the record sheet that I gave them. So you'll notice it's kind of small, but you'll notice that I do have the picture in color along with the word, the planet name, so that there was no confusion. And that's really great for my ESL students, because they need both. They need the picture, they need the word. So for your struggling students who may not know, what the planets look like, what each planet looks like, even though that was a huge unit for us, it kind of gives them that extra support too. So this is just showing you how to link pictures or words to a website or to a slide. You just select the image or the words that you want to link, and you hit Control plus the K button, and it pops up like a box. And you can either put a website in there, or you can hit the downward button and you can select a slide. So you just have to make sure that, like, when you're looking at your slides on the side, if you're linking like the sun and it needs to be on slide 10, you want to make sure you link it to slide 10. That's the only thing. But it doesn't matter what order you put your slides in, because it doesn't matter which order they go in, so to speak. Okay, this is another one that's kind of the same concept. I just made it a little bit different, a little cutesy. It's Firecracker Pop. I used it as a science review. So I had the question, and they would tap on the firecracker, it pops, and it shows the answer. So it's that self-checking. This would be great for any kind of review before you take a test. Any content can use something like this. But I just made it kind of cutesy because my kids they're third graders. They like cutesy things, but you could do it as something else. And then the I guess the explosion look, that's just it's a shape in Google. It's called explosion. There's explosion 1, explosion 2. So there's different ones. And so it just kind of looks like it's popping. Kind of fun. Okay, this is another cool one. I got this idea from Meredith Akers. I saw her do it one time and I was like, I have to figure out how she did that, because it's super cool. And it really is super easy, honestly. This is a mystery reveal drag and drop. So they're taking that magnifying glass and they're moving it down where this box is. It looks like it's empty, but it actually has words in it that are the same color as the background. So they're moving this magnifying glass basically behind the transparent box there, and it reveals the answer. It's pretty cool. So let's watch it in action. So it moves it over and it reveals that the answer is 70. Move it over, it reveals that it is a waxing crescent. So I will show you how to do that here in a little bit as well, because I think it's a really fun activity. This would be really great for those middle schoolers and those high schoolers. Get a different magnifying glass that doesn't look so cutesy. Get one that looks real, and your kids will love it, because it really gives the illusion that it's just magically appearing. Hold on, we have a chat question. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I will show you guys how to do this in a little bit. It's pretty easy. It looks hard, but really it's not. It's all about layering your pieces. You've got a background, you have a box, and then this is basically going between the background and the box. And then the last little one that I want to talk about before we talk about some little shortcuts that help me make these things super fast and easy. This is a Tangram activity. My kids love Tangrams in the classroom. I have a bunch of them, but I had Zoomies. My Zoomies didn't have any Tangrams at home, so created a Tangram activity. I actually got this from Eric Kurtz. If you don't follow him on Twitter, I highly suggest you do. He's a Google master, but he had this little template here that he shared. I grabbed it and then I just made a lot of duplicates of each of the colors and stacked them on top of each other like a deck of cards. So I'm going to show you that as well. But this is just a really fun way for my students to use Tangrams digitally. I gave my students in the classroom the option they could do it hands-on with just like the actual Tangrams pieces, or they could use the board. So giving, again, that choice, most of them chose to do the board, even though they were like, this is a little bit harder because you got to turn it. It is, but once they got the hang of flipping things and turning things, it became really easy. What I also love is that I started them off with an image that has all the pieces cut out, so they could see which shapes they needed for each part. This was great for my ESL students or just my students that struggle with that spatial reasoning. They were able to start there and then move on to the more difficult ones that don't have the outlines. My GT kids, they wanted to start at the hardest ones, which is totally fine. This was not a grade. It was just an activity for them to talk with their neighbors, talk about the attributes of the shapes, how many they needed for each picture. I mean, they were also just practicing some basic skills on the computer of turning shapes, manipulating the shapes, things like that. So another great activity, hands-on. But anyway, I liked it. And I'm going to show you how to make this into like a deck of cards here in just a little bit too, when we practice all together. This is just an animation showing you how I've done it. So when you go back and you're working on your own and you are like, I can't remember how she did that. So I just select a shape and then I hit Control D, it duplicates it. And I just kept doing that over and over and over again. From there, I selected all of them and I right clicked and I hit Align vertically to the top, and it brings all of those to the top and lined up like this. And then I selected them again and hit right click, Align horizontally, and it basically put them all on top of each other like a deck of cards. And then you can move that whole deck on top of wherever you want to move it. Anyways, it makes it easy. So that's how you make a deck of cards. So every time they were moving that yellow piece, there was another yellow piece behind it. That was also something my students didn't realize. So when they started doing that, they were like, oh, I only have one yellow piece. And I would say, just try it, just see what happens. And they would move it and they're like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. And they kind of got excited because they were like, how many are there? And I'm like, I don't know, there could be 10, there could be 50, there could be 100, I don't know. But it was just really fun for them to, kind of see how many there were. Some of them, I think, genuinely counted because they wanted to know. All right. Before we move on to shortcuts, are there any questions about those activities? Okay. All right. If you joined me for my Google tips, tricks for beginners, you have learned these shortcuts, but I always include shortcuts in all of my trainings. So I think they're important for us to know, but they're really great to share with our students too. So teaching them these shortcuts is going to save them a lot of heartache and time, because even middle schoolers and high schoolers, if they did not have access to this growing up, they may not know how to do this. So it's a really great way to teach your students too. My students always loved to learn a new shortcut. And so a lot of times I would say, especially on like STEM Fridays, when they had the opportunity to pick technology, once we had all of our technology, I would say, does anybody want to learn some shortcuts? And, if they wanted to learn shortcuts, they could come see me at my small group table and we would just. All right, so the first one is to select everything you have on your page. It's called Select All. You hit the Control button and the A button. everything there. Even if you have stuff on your dead space, it will select it. So this would be, this is a great shortcut. Like if I'm creating that drag and drop and I made it on my slide, but now I want to put it in my master slide or my master theme, I would hit select all, control all, and then from there I would copy and paste it. So our next shortcut is copy and paste. So control and the C button is going to paste it. I'm sorry, it's going to copy it. Control C is copy it, and paste it is control V. And you can copy and paste it outside of your Google Slides. If you want to paste it somewhere else, you can. But it may not look exactly the same if you were to paste it like in an email or something like that. But control copy, control C, control V, copy and paste. This is what I use probably a million times a day. Resizing images. This is a great one to teach your students. So what I notice is when my students are putting pictures in like a slide presentation and they're wanting to make it bigger or smaller and they're moving it and they're pulling like the sides out and then it's like too wide, too tall, it's squished, it doesn't look right. I mean, it's very distorted and it's because they didn't keep the dimensions the same. So if you are resizing an image and you want those dimensions to remain intact, if you hold down your shift button and you drag the corner of your image, this works with text boxes too, or a word art, it's going to keep the dimensions of that image the same. So it's not going to look distorted at all. Another way to do that, and I didn't include this here, but if you hold down the control button and do the corner, it'll do the same thing, but it resizes it from the middle. So it looks a little different and I'll show you, but it basically does the same thing. Keeps the dimensions, but resizes it from the inside out, like it goes from the middle out. It's kind of hard to visualize that, so I'll show you in a minute. But there's just two different ways to do it. This is the way I usually teach the students to do it, just because they also need to learn that control of moving, you know, their corner to make it the right size. Duplicate. This is what I use to make those cards, those little deck of cards. Control D, once you select something, will duplicate it. It's different than pasting. So when you're copying and pasting, you can paste that, you know, somewhere else. You're pushing paste and it can move it to anywhere. When you're duplicating what you have selected just right there. You can't duplicate it and it's not going to show up on another page. Okay, so you're duplicating that image right there at that spot. And you can do it as many times as you want to create as many duplicates as you want. This is a really great way. I use this if I'm creating like text boxes, and once I have it perfect the way I like it, and I'm like, I don't want to have to resize this again and again and again, I'm going to duplicate it over and over again so that I don't have to, I save myself the time of formatting things. Okay, ordering and layering images. This is how I get that effect of that mystery reveal. It's also how I made the effect of my shortcuts banner here. So basically the word short, the word cuts, and the scissors, they're all layered differently. I've got the short in the back, cuts is in the very front, and this scissors is between them. So it kind of gives them that effect of it's cutting that apart. And you do that by just bringing images forward and backward on your page. To bring it to the front where it's all in the front, like the word cuts here, you're going to hit Control Shift and the up button, and it brings it to the very forefront of the screen. To bring it just forward, you would hit Control and up. So if I wanted to bring the scissors, or if I wanted to bring the short forward a little bit, not in front of the cuts, but just forward, I would hit Control and up, and it would bring it just up in front of the scissors, but not in front of the word cuts. Again, I'll show you that here in a little bit, because I know it's hard to visualize that when you're visualizing it on a flat surface, and so that's hard to see layers and to understand the layers. You can bring things to the back. You can do the reverse of that, and that is to send it to the back. If you're sending it to the back, you're sending it to the very back, like the word short. It's in the back of my screen. And you do that by just the Control Shift and the down button, and sends it all the way to the back. If you want to bring it backward, just one layer at a time backward, you're doing Control and down. Okay. If you accidentally hit shift and you meant to not hit shift, you can just reverse it and go back up and it'll fix itself. So you can't mess up with the forward and backward of it. If you send it backward and you're like, oh no, what happened to it? You can always reverse what you just did and send it forward. Okay, linking words and images. That's that Control K. You can link any word, any image to a website, to something else in the slide. I do this when I want my students to access something in Schoology. Like if I want them to go to like a quiz or something, and I want them to go to that page right there, I'm going to link the words, click here, this is your assignment, or something like that. And I'm going to link those words, click here, this is your assignment, to the link that I want them to go to. And the reason I do that is because it highlights it in blue, it underlines it, and it makes it a hyperlink. I do this for my parents too. When I'm sending an email and I'm like, I need you to read the newsletter, I'll say, read newsletter here. And I highlight those words and I link them to my newsletter. It just makes it super easy and it directs people where you want them to go. And it makes it to where you're not putting that really long URL, because sometimes that looks crazy. Sometimes those URLs are really long. It kind of clutters up your email or clutters up your directions. It's just an easy way to do that. It draws your students' attention to it, draws your parents' eyes attention to it, and it makes it really easy so that they can't not click it. I mean, if it's blue, I'm like, I'm going to click it. You know, my students are the same way. Oh, it's blue, it's big, I think I should click that. But then you can also link pictures to things like that too. So if I'm in an assignment and I say, you're going to click on the dog and then do the next thing, they know, click on the dog. It's going to take them somewhere. Okay, this is the best one. This is like teacher ninja things. We've all been there. We're walking around the room, kids are working, it's so peaceful. You're like, oh, look at them, they're doing their technology, it's so wonderful. And then all of a sudden you're walking towards Johnny and he's like, oh gosh. And you can tell he's frantic. He is moving around. He is tapping furiously at the computer. You know he's closing tabs. You know he was doing something he probably shouldn't have been doing. And you just calmly walk up and you hit Control Shift and T, and it opens up the tabs that he just closed. If you're like, I think he had more than one tab closed, you can do Control Shift T again as many times as you want. And it's going to open up all those tabs that Johnny just closed. This is my ninja move. I don't tell my students how to do this. This is a shortcut. I never tell them because I don't want them to know it. I just swiftly go over and just do those 3 letters or 3 keys. And they're like, what? I'm like, And I tell them, I see it all. I know everything you're doing. I know everything that you type. Really quick story. At the end of the year, we were doing lots of technology. And they were working on projects, they were working on presentations, and they were creating slides for a zoo project I had them doing. And did the same thing, went over, did that. And I was like, this isn't your slide. You're working on, no, this isn't your zoo project. This is a different slide. And as I'm looking at it, my kids, some of them, created a chat among themselves using Google Slides. They made a slide, they shared it with each other. They all were editors of it. And so they were just typing. They would make a text box and they were just typing to each other. Now, granted, it was nothing bad. It was all like, oh my gosh, I found this really great video for my gorilla page on my project. And they were like sharing that kind of stuff. And they were talking about where they were in their projects. So it was all harmless, but I'm like, guys, you're sitting next to each other. You don't need a chat. Like, you don't need to do that. Save it for summer. Like, you can make one for summer and chat with each other, but this is not what we need to do. Do they? Okay, so someone's middle schoolers do that too. And Word, yeah. They're sneaky. They are so sneaky. But this is your ninja move. This is going to help you get back those tabs that they closed, get them back on task. This works for you too, because I know I do it. I'm like, I get close tab happy and I start closing things and I'm like, oh, I needed that. And so I just really quickly do this trick and it brings it back up. All right. Any questions before we move on, because we are going to be creating together. I'm going to show you how to do some of these skills in real time and help you kind of get started with like a template, or help you to, you know, practice these skills so that you can make your own template later. But if there are any questions, please shout them out so that we can all benefit from your question, or type it in the chat. If you don't have any questions, then we'll just get started. All right. Okay, I'm going to come out of present mode. And you probably need to be out of full screen mode, because what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a Google slide, a fresh Google slide. Thank you, Miss Cara. All right, so get out of full screen present mode, and then you're going to want to split your screen. You're going to want to have me on one side, and you're going to want to have a brand new slide deck on the other side. And the way that you can do that, that's super easy, is two ways. One way is you can hold down the Windows key on your computer, and then you've got arrows that go left and right. If you just hold down your Windows key and click one of those arrows, hold on a second. There we go. It will snap it to the side, and then you can pull up your other window on this side. Okay, so like if I pull up, let's see what's safe. This is safe. Okay, so if I pull up this Google Chrome tab, I can have that there. So the Windows key and then the arrows. Have a Windows button to show students. You know what? Maybe. Now I'm drawing a blank. I don't know if the Chromebooks have the window button. There's another way to do it though. I'm going to show you another way. Now I'm drawing a blank. I probably could have answered that yesterday, but now, of course, like on the spot. Okay. Another way that you can do that is if you click up here where there's no tabs. So up here, I don't have any tabs. If you just click on it and you drag it, you can drag it all the way to the side, and see how it kind of makes a little transparent border there. And I just let go, it snaps it to the side. You can do that to either side. So, and your students can do that. Yeah, there is a way for the students. If it doesn't have that, if it doesn't have the window button, they can do it this way. Because I have had students do it that way, where they just drag where there's not a tab and they just click it and drag it over to the side. That has worked too. Okay, so you need a fresh slide. If you start typing in your URL, if you didn't know this, if you start typing slide, it's slide.new. But the more you do it, Google will know, she typed SL, she wants a new slide, because I do this all the time. So the more you do it, the more Google Chrome is going to recognize that you want a new slide. So if you just start typing in slide.new, it will basically say you want a slide, and you just hit enter and it'll generate a new slide for you. Okay, I'm going to title mine real quick. Don't lose it. All right, so you've got a brand new slide. I'm going to X out of that theme. I just want a clean space. So this is what it normally looks like. Boring. I want something fresh. I don't want any text boxes. Nothing. So what I'm going to do is you can click anywhere, and then you can hit your Control A, and it's going to highlight everything. It's going to select everything. Another way that you can do this is if you click somewhere outside, like on your slide, but somewhere not on the actual text box, and you drag over all of it, it like rubber band snaps everything selected. Let me show you that again. You can do Control A, or you can click over here on the side and you can drag over it. See, and I'm not even going to drag over all of it, but watch, it'll snap it and select it all. And so that's a great way to select everything on your page too. And then from there, you can copy, you can paste. For me, I'm going to delete it. So I'm just going to get rid of it. And now I have just a blank, clean space. Okay. All right. So now let's put a title on our slide. I'm going to go into insert and I'm going to get a word art. So insert and then word art here. I really love word art because you can change the color, you can change the font really easily. It makes it a fill color. So you're filling in the color, you're not actually doing line. You can make the lines a different color, but you're filling in, it's kind of like bubble words. So I'm going to do vocabulary and drop. And then just hit enter. So you've got like these words that have an inside that you can color in. Again, you can change the font. Your fonts are up here. I don't like Arial. I like different kinds of fonts. We'll do, this is Ranchers. And then you can drag it wherever you want. You just select it, you can move it. Your crosshairs will tell you if it's in the center. And then you can change the color, make it your style. Up here, this is your fill color. So it's a paint can with like a drop. You're gonna click on that and you can pick any of the colors here. You can pick the color wheel. If you wanna do custom, you can make a custom color. For our time purposes, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pick a color. So we have our color and then you can not fill in, but you can do different borders. So right now there is a border, it's very light, the gray color. I want it to be a black color because I think it stands out. And then you can change the border width. Like you can make it super thin. Right now it's very, very thin, but you can make it as thick as you want. And then you can actually change the way the border is. You can have a solid line, you can have dotted lines. I always just choose solid lines. If you're doing something super fun and fancy, you can change it. Okay, so now let's resize this. So we have it selected. We are going to hit our shift button and we're going to grab our corner and we're going to resize it by keeping the dimensions. So it kept everything the same. It didn't change, didn't make it look, stretched out or squished. The other way that you can do that is you can still grab a corner, but you can hit that control button and watch. It's gonna resize it a little bit different way. Kind of does it from the middle. So it resizes it that way. Either one is fine. It's just whatever your taste is, whatever you like. But I feel like this makes it bigger faster, so to speak. And maybe you don't want it super, super big. But that's two ways that you can resize those things. So you can select, hold the shift button and drag from the corner, or you can hit the control button and drag from the corner. It's just going to do it from the middle out. Okay. All right, so now we want to make some boxes that have our questions in them. And we're going to practice like duplicating and resizing and formatting a bunch of things at the same time. So this is where you're going to get that time saver. So you're going to come up to the shapes and you have a lot of different shapes. You have your, customary shapes here. You've got arrows, call outs, equations even, but we just want a simple rectangle for right now. So we're going to click on that rectangle and then you just click and you drag it to whatever size you want it to be. And I just eyeball it. I know I'm going to want like 4 of these. And so maybe about this size, because I'm going to do one here, and then 2 on the bottom. So let me show you that again. You're going to go to the shape. You're going to pick a shape. Here's the rectangle. And then you just, once you have it selected, you just click and you drag to make it the size you want. And then let's see, we're going to make this transparent. So I want it to be able to see through. If I had a background, like a colorful background, you would be able to see the background through it. If I have just white, it's just going to look white on the, seeing through it. So the way you make something transparent is you're going to go to your fill color and you're going to hit this transparent down here. So fill color, hit transparent. And now you can see through that box. You can see the background through the box. We are going to make a border because you want it to kind of stand out. So I'm going to make my border black. At this time, I'm probably going to make that border weight maybe a little bit thicker, like a 4-point. And so now I have a great box. This is a really good box. I'm going to put all my questions. I'm going to put a question in this box here in a minute. But before I do that, because I am going to make 3 identical boxes, I want them to have somewhat of the same information. Like I may want to have question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, because I think my students need to know what question is which. So you can always triple click in here and it pulls up a cursor so you can type in it. You can pick your font. So any shape that you put into your slide is technically a text box. So you can change your font, you can change the colors if you want to change, the color of the font inside of it or whatever. For me, I'm just going to type in question 1. Just for the sake of this training, I'm just going to do my question 1. Now it's in this spot that's not very convenient. I don't like where it is. You can always highlight this. And up here, you've got your alignment. You click on the arrow, it gives you more options. And so I want it in the center. This is your center alignment. And then I still don't like where it is. It's in the middle, but I want it on the top. So you can go again to your alignment. And then down here are the arrows that show you where to put it. This is going to push it up to the top. This is going to keep it in the center. And this is going to push it down to the bottom. I want it at the top. So I'm going to click on this and it jumps that verbiage up to the top. And so now I have my box, I have my question 1. I can then type my question down below it if I want to. For the sake of this training, I'm not going to type questions. I'm just going to do the question 1 in the box. And now I'm going to duplicate what I have because I can always go back in and change it to say question 2, question 3, and put my questions in there. Okay. All right, so we're going to duplicate. I want you to click on this. And then we're going to hold down our Control and the D button for duplicate. And I need 3 more, just like this. So 1, 2, and 3. I have my 3 duplicate boxes. And now you can move them wherever you want to move them. My mouse is dragging. It's not working. Right. Here we go. Moving my boxes. And you don't have to worry about making them super straight because I'm going to show you how to make them straight here in a minute. Okay, so we've got our 4 boxes. They look great. This is where I would go in and I would then change this to say 2, 3, and 4. And then I would put my actual questions in them. Okay. Now, it doesn't look appealing because they're not straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to format these kind of at the same time. I am going to make this a little bit smaller so I have enough room to do all this. There we go. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to select these top 2 boxes. You can do the little rubber band trick. Be careful not to grab your title or these down here because if you accidentally cross over those, it will select them. So I selected these 2 and then I'm going to right click. Oh my, you know what? My right click isn't working. I dropped my mouse before this started. Okay, so we're going to right click and I want them to be more aligned. They're kind of like this. And so first of all, I may want to go down here and these are your align buttons and I want to align them vertically to the top. So I did a right click and then I scrolled down here to align vertically and I want them to come up to the top. And it just snaps them up to the top. So now they are aligned with the top lines. So these top lines, that's where it aligned it to. And I know these are going to be even. They're still both highlighted, so I can still right click and I may want to center them on the page. They may be kind of shifted over too much to the right or the left. And so you can center them on the page. You can do it horizontally or you can do it vertically. We're going to do it horizontally because I want them to be centered like this. And it just kind of shifts it over to where it's in line with that 5 right down the center of my page. Okay. All right, we're going to do the same thing with these 2 over here. So you're going to rubber band these 2 together. And then we're going to right click. We're going to align vertically to the top. And it snaps those up on top. Then it's still selected. So we're going to right click. Oops. Try that again. And then we're going to center them on the page, or center them on the page horizontally. Those were already in the middle, so it didn't change where those were. Okay, so that's how you can kind of move things at the same time. You can kind of format them the same way, the same way without having to move everything a bunch of times. It just makes it super helpful. All right, now let's say we have our questions in there. We have all the questions. Everything is the way you want it. But now you're like, I worked really hard on this. I don't want my students to mess it up. I don't want them to reformat anything or change my questions. So now we're going to put this into what used to be called the master slide, but now it's called themes. So you can Control A to select all of it. And then we're going to copy it. So we're going to do Control C to copy all of this. And then I'm going to come over here where it says slide. And when I click on slide, it gives me these options. I want to go to edit theme. So slide, edit theme. And when I click on that, it opens up this weird grayed out page. Now, let me tell you really quickly about the theme settings. So it starts off, it always puts you right here where it says layouts. So it says layouts right here, it's highlighted in yellow. You have the ability to make various layouts. So this is when I would make, if I have several pages I want my students to go through, I'm gonna make several layouts. Now, this top one right here that says theme, that I just clicked on, now it's highlighted in blue. This is like if you want the same theme for every single page. For instance, let me just show you really quickly over here on my future ready slides. You're going to notice that every single slide has a border and has my contact information at the bottom. I didn't just copy that every time. I put that in a theme. So what I did was I made that on the main theme. I put the border, I put my contact information at the bottom so that every time I add a slide, it has the border and the contact information under it. I don't have to do anything to it. It's just automatically going to show up every time I say new slide, it's going to show up. Okay. So I wouldn't put necessarily what we just did on this page because you don't want it to be the same thing over and over again. So we're going to come down here. We're going to create that layout. We already have it on our clipboard. Okay. So now we just got to get rid of all this information. You can, do your Control A. Oops. Got to click on it. There we go. You can do your Control A, or you can do that rubber band and make sure you get all of it, and you can delete it. Okay. So now it's fresh, it's clean. So now we're going to do our paste. We're going to hit Control and V, and it's going to paste what we created. And so now we've got this layout for our students. To get out of it, you just click over here to the side where your slide is. Now, I have the layout and I have what we just worked on already on here. They're both on here. You can't tell, but look, if I move this, see, it's underneath there. So I'm actually going to get rid of everything that I have here. I'm just going to delete it because now that theme is the background of the slide. So they can't access it. They can't click on it. It doesn't select anything. Now you can always go back into your slide and edit what you've done. You can change it. You can always grab it again, but your students can't because it's stuck in the background. Okay. So let's say you wanted to do another slide. Okay, let's add a slide. Now, notice how it's blank. It's not there. It doesn't have the same theme. But we're going to go in, and what I would like to do is show you how to make a new theme. Okay, so we're just going to go back to our slide and go back to edit theme, and we're just going to make a simple change to the theme we already have here. Okay, I'm going to come down here. So I'm making a new layout. I'm just going to paste the same thing I had. Sorry, guys, I'm working with a mouse that I dropped on the floor right before this training. And I'm going to paste it. So now it's the same, but I'm going to make one change so you can see the difference. Instead of this being green, let's make it a color. I'll make it pink. Okay. So now I have these two layouts here. Let me show you how to change the theme to your slide. So we're going to come back.
Okay, Kelly, can you show this again, please?
So which part? So right here, this part, I just went to my layout, the next layout down, and I deleted what was on it. And I pasted the layout that we already made here, but I just changed the color of this. So they're the same. I'm just showing you how to create those different layouts so you can choose a layout for your slides. Because for instance, you're going to want to have more than one slide for your students to work on. So you're going to have like questions 1, 2, 3, 4 on one of them, and then like 5, 6, 7, 8. So like this one would be question 5, and this one would be question 6, and this one would be 7, and this one would be 8. And so you would just put those questions there. Okay. Okay. So now over here, I have my questions 1, 2, 3, 4, but I need them to have 5, 6, 7, 8. When you select this slide in your deck and you right click it, you can come down here to apply layout. So you're selecting your slide, you right click, apply layout, and then you have the options of all the slides that you created. These are the two that we just created. These are slides that we haven't touched yet. Okay, and you may not touch them. You may only need 2 slides, but I want this one. I already have the green one, but I want the pink one. So I just select it, and now it's there. Students can't touch it, but you have your questions there in that master theme. Okay.
Will that always be there no matter if you're creating a brand new presentation? Does it automatically save, or is it just for this presentation?
Just for this presentation.
Okay.
But if you like the way you've done it and you just want to change out the questions, but you don't want to, like, you can copy and paste it and just change your questions. So I could copy this and then go to a new presentation and paste it and then change my questions. That's literally how I do all my presentations when I make my border and my contact information. I just go in, I select it and put in a new one, and I might change the border color, but my contact information is the same, and I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel there. Okay. Okay, let's do our answer choices. Okay, so let's go back to that first slide, and now we're going to create those answer choices that the students are going to need to drag and move. Again, I'm going to use a shape. You can use whatever shape you want. I'm going to use a call out. I think they're super fun. They're big. I'm going to use this explosion one. This is called explosion 2. And again, you just click and drag to make it whatever size you want. That looks like a good size. And it's going to show it up in gray. You can click on it and it becomes a text box. You can put your answers here. So maybe I want the answer to be 15. I don't know. You can change the font. You can make it bigger. Here's an easy way to make it bigger. If you hold down the shift key, the control key, and then your greater than sign or your less than sign, it will make it bigger or smaller by 1 increment. So right now it's on 14, but if I do control shift and the greater than sign once, it's now 15. And I can just tap that greater than sign as many times as I want to make it the size I want. Okay. You can also put it in the center. So it works just like a text box. All right, so there's my first answer choice. I am going to need a few more of these answer choices. So I'm going to go ahead and make my border. There we go, there's my border. And I'm going to duplicate this. I can change that answer choice. I can change what's in here, but I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And then I'm going to change the colors after that. Okay, so I have it selected. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. So I have my 3 answer choices. And then I'm just going to move them out to the side. And you'll notice that because none of this stuff can be selected, I have now a really great like workspace. I can put my shapes anywhere and it's not going to mess up my formatting. Okay. All right. I'm going to change these answers. I'm going to make it, I'm just going to change them really fast. Something easy. 52. Okay. So now I have my answers. But I want them to be colorful. So now you can go in and you can change whatever fill color you want them to be. I always do different colors so that it's easy for them to recognize. I'm doing orange. Okay. All right, so my questions, they can't change, they can't edit, but my answer choices, they can. So let's work on getting them to where they can't edit them. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back into your shapes and you're going to grab the same shape that you just did. Okay, so I'm going to get, I mean, if you wanted to do a square over this, you could also do a square over it. It really doesn't matter. Let's do a square or a rectangle. Because I'm going to show you, it really doesn't matter. You just want to make sure it's bigger than your original colorful piece. So I'm going to do a square. And I know it's bigger because when I let go, it's there, it's covering it. So it's going to be bigger than the others. Okay. Now I'm going to keep it, gray for right now. I am going to change the border to transparent because I don't want them to see a border. And in a minute, I'm going to change all those boxes that I just made transparent. But I don't want to do it now because once I make them transparent, they get lost really easily on your slide because you can't see them. So I'm going to keep them transparent until I'm going to keep them gray until I need to make it transparent. Okay, so now I'm going to make 3 more of these by doing my Control D. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to move them over and make a stack of them. And I can come back to them later. Okay. So here is that pink piece. Here's my gray box. I'm going to put my gray box right on top of it. And now I'm going to make it transparent. Okay, so go up into your fill color and you're going to make it transparent. So now you still have that box there, but you can see your colorful piece through it. Okay, so I went up to the fill color and I just hit transparent. All right. Now, they're still not glued together. They could still move that transparent piece and access the colorful piece. So we need to glue it. So you're going to do your little rubber band trick. You're going to click somewhere over here and you're going to go over your colorful piece. And if you're covering the colorful piece, you're grabbing the transparent piece. So I've got them both selected here. They're all selected for the pink and the transparent. And now I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit the group selection. So once you have those 2 pieces selected, you're going to right click and hit group. And when you do that, you're going to notice that now they move together. I'm essentially just clicking on my transparent piece and that pink piece comes with it because it's glued together. So they can't access the pink, they can't type in it because when they're actually touching it, they're touching that transparent box on top. Okay. Let's do it again. Let's get a little bit more practice. I'm going to move my orange one. Let's grab one of those gray pieces and stick it right on top. We're going to go into our fill color and we're going to make it transparent. And then we're going to rubber band and we're going to right click and group. And so now those pieces are also stuck together. 2 more. Gray piece over the yellow. I'm going to move my blue over a little bit. And I'm going to rubber band those. Actually, no, I got to make it transparent. We're going to go transparent. We're going to rubber band it. going to right click and group. And so now that piece those two pieces move together. And let's do our last one. Bring this over. Fill color transparent. Rubber band them together. Right click and group. All right, so now we have those pieces and your students are going to move them where they fit based on answering those questions. And when they go to that next slide, if you have in your speaker notes the answers to the first slide, they easily can see it right here. They can see that, oh, number 1 should have been orange, 2 should have been pink, 3 yellow, and 4 blue.
How did you group them again?
I can go show you again. So I'm gonna have to ungroup them real quick. So you're gonna right click, let me ungroup it. Okay, so my box is here, that transparent box is here. I'm going to drag over both the transparent box and the pink box. And then I'm gonna right click and you have the option to group them. You hit group. Group is like gluing them together. And so now they're pasted together. You can always ungroup them if you need to change, access the pink piece and change the answer. Any questions so far?
Oh, wait. Okay. Sorry, I missed it. Because the screens, the two screens together, they're kind of like overlapping.
I know it's hard. I mean, it's so much better if we were, in the same classroom, right?
Right. And so first I have to make it transparent.
Yeah.
Just make it white, right?
No, make it transparent. So when you go to your fill color, like it starts off as gray.
Right.
But you're gonna want to come down at the bottom. It says transparent.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah, it's all at the bottom. And then once it's transparent, you're just gonna drag over both of them to select them both. And then you can use that right click and then group.
Okay.
And then they're stuck.
And group. I'm not seeing anything that says group.
You may need to make your screen either smaller or bigger because it might be farther down in the menu. The other way is you can, the shortcut is Control Alt and G.
Okay. Real quick. And for the group part, like I'm just supposed to see the word group pop up?
It should be, yeah, when you right click, mine says ungroup now because I've already grouped them. But when you right click, it's underneath where you have the alignments. It'll say align vertically, align horizontally, and then group is underneath. Or you can
So I'm really clicking on the transparent box.
you have to select them both. So you have to click your mouse somewhere outside of it, drag over the transparent box. It'll select both of them and then you have to right click.
I'm not putting the transparent box over the colorful one?
You are, but you have to drag over both of them. So here's my transparent box right here.
Right.
They have to be on top of each other. And then you have to click somewhere outside of your transparent box and drag over both the transparent and the colorful. Select both of them. And then once you do that and you right click, you will have the option to group them.
Okay. Let's see. So drag over. Oh.
If you're
Okay. I see group now.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, if you're still having trouble with it, then I can help you at the end. I want to make sure we get through everything.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, there's a question in the chat. It says, would I have to do the questions before I make the theme? No, you don't. You can go into your theme and you can edit your questions. So if I go into my slide and I go into edit theme, these are my themes. I can still access this. I can still click on it And I can still type in like, what is your name? And I can do that. And then when I come over here outside of my slide, if I move this, it says, what is your name? So it already updates that. So no, you don't have to already have your questions done. You can go into your theme and you can edit that as many times as you want to. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, any other questions about any of this stuff before? I want to show you how to do that drag and drop. I want to give you a visual for that, or the mystery reveal before we move on. And I do want to show you some other activities that you can use that aren't Google Slides, but this gives you kind of an idea of how to create your own, because now you've practiced some of those shortcuts and those tools, so you can kind of make it whatever you want it to make, whatever you want it to be. You have those tools. So are there any other questions about any of these things? Do you need me to show you something again? I'm happy to do that. Okay, all right. I do want to show you my magnifying glass. This is my template that I made. Just really quickly, this piece right here, this I got from Flat Icon. Flat Icon is a freemium website. It allows you to download images that are PNGs. A PNG is an image that basically doesn't have a background. So you see how this image does not have that white space around it, like most things from Google. This takes away the background. So that's why I love it, because I could, I can pass it over things. I can put a text box on top of it or whatever. And that way it doesn't take away from the image. However, if you want the premium images, you have to pay for them. The only thing is you need to attribute, if you're going to use it, you need to say somewhere in your presentation, I use Flat Icon for my images, just so you don't have the copyright police on your tail, okay? So I just have this is just a background. If I go over here to background, you're going to notice it's just a color. I just changed the color of the background, and that was it. So that's not a shape or anything. It's just the color of the background. This right here is a text box or just a shape that I made, and I made it transparent. So I'm going to move it over so you can see it is transparent. It does not have a fill color, but the number 70, I made it the exact same color as my background. Okay, so that's where the magic is there. So you've got a background. I have this transparent box with the green 70 in it. And then this piece right here with that layering of that Control, Shift, and up and down, I've just layered it to fit behind the transparent box. It can't go into the background. The background's in the background, but it just literally slides behind that transparent box. Let me just show you what it would look like if it's not in the right spot. I'm going to bring that magnifying glass to the front. So see how now it's on the front? I can't see the answer choice. I can't see the transparent box because that magnifying glass is sitting in the front. So that's where that layering piece comes in handy, is just sending it backwards. And now I can see the 70 because the green 70 shows up on that kind of whitish background of the magnifying glass. So that's really the magic of this. There's not really, at first I was like, that looks really hard. But really, once I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, that's pretty easy. So really cool activity. It has a lot of appeal to our students. Clearly, I didn't put my border in the background. But the kids love it. They think it's fun. Let's see. Did you say you had a different version for middle school? I don't have a different version for middle school, but only thing that you could change for middle school, I mean, you're going to create your own questions. I would just change this to a magnifying glass that wasn't so cutesy. So I would go to Flat Icon and I would just get one that looks like a real magnifying glass. That's what I would do. But however you want to do it would be great. Any questions about this little magnifying glass or this type of drag and drop and how that piece works?
Carrie, can you show us, like, right now your answer 70 is hiding in a box. Can you show us how you hide that, please?
So the box itself is transparent. So let me move it over again. The box is transparent. I just have the number 70, the same color as my background.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay,
So when I
thank
just
you.
highlighted this, I just changed the color up here. And I just picked the exact same color that I picked for my background.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I do get this question kind of a lot, like, oh man, I really need to fix this. Like, well, what if I don't like that color? What if I don't like my color options? I'll show you something really quickly. Because I don't like the normal colors either. All the things that I create, I like to customize my colors because I don't know, it's just me. But the way that I do that is I have an extension on my Chrome. It's called Color Pick Eyedropper. You can literally search in Google Chrome, Color Pick Eyedropper, and it will show up. But literally what it is, it gives you like these crosshairs so that you can go over whatever color you want. If you click on it, it gives you the color code here. So you can copy this code. And then when you're wanting to change like the color of something, you just go in to change the color, but you paste this code in there. Okay, so like here, I'm gonna copy it. And then let's say, I'm gonna come over here. Hold on, I gotta X out. Okay, so let's say I come over here to this one. And it says waxing crescent here, but I want to change it to that color. So I would come over here and I'd hit custom. And then I would just paste that color code. And now waxing is in that color. Okay, so it's super easy to change it. And then if you're like, I don't like that, you can always change it back. So when you go into your color, it had that custom color. There we go. Oh, it's not a custom color because it's from the color wheel. That's why. But then you can always change it back. So I can show you on my actual presentation what that kind of looks like. It's like over here, like all of these are custom colors. So if I click on just the word time and I go to my fill color, these are all my custom colors that I created. So just found a color that I liked. If you pick a color and then you want to change its saturation, you can do that too. So sometimes I do that as well. So this might have started off as another color, but I changed the saturation to make it that color pink. So Color Pick Eyedropper is a really cool tool to add to your Chrome because then you can pick whatever color you want. You like a color, you want to match it perfectly, that's the way to do it. All right. If there are no more questions about that, we'll continue. I do want to make sure that we, end on time. So I am going to show you a few other activities that I've used in the classroom. They aren't necessarily Google Slides. They might be Google Drawings or Google Sheets. So this one right here was a virtual escape room that I did. I did this one, the theme was Australia. So I created this in Google Slides and then the pictures led them to somewhere. So like they clicked on the kangaroo, it led them to YouTube. They watched a YouTube video on kangaroos and they were actually, the question that I had for them, they were listening for like 2 keywords. I think the keywords were like big feet, because what they were going to do is they were going to then go to a Google form and they were going to answer those questions to unlock the Google form and break out of the room. So this is kind of like those escape rooms that you actually go to and you have to go through the clues to try to unlock the door. This was a virtual version of that. Should I order send back? The magnifying glass, should I order send backwards or send to the back? Send backwards if it's just going in between something. Okay, so each thing was kind of linked to something else. This is just an animation showing you how that worked. They clicked on the flowers. It went to a Wikipedia site on that particular flower that is specific for that region. And then they were looking for something about the flower. I think it said it had deep roots. Okay, so that's something that we were looking for. So I wanted them to make sure they knew the words deep roots, to then go into the Google form and type that in to answer that question and unlock that piece of the puzzle. Really fun, engaging. My students didn't really know that they were learning. They were just like, oh, this is cool. It's like a breakout room, you know? And I said, yeah, it's exactly that. But they had fun with that. So you could do this with anything. You could do this with language arts. You could do it with science, with math, whatever you wanted to do it with. You pick the topic, you pick the subject, and then just go with it. This is the form that I used. So in order for them to unlock everything, I made sure that I formatted the form to where I was looking for specific words, and everything had to be capitalized. And I wrote that in the directions too. It said, like, make sure it's all caps. I gave them clues, like the first one says that you're looking for 2 words. The first word was 3 letters. The second word was 4 letters. And so they knew that they had to type in 2 different words. They had to match the 3-letter and the 4-letter rule to unlock it. So it kind of gave them a little bit more of a support. So they weren't just like in the dark looking for words to put there, but they actually knew, and I made it pretty obvious, like this is the answer to it, you know, and they loved it. They had a lot of fun. Okay, these are some activities using drawings and sheets. If you've never used drawings does not show up when you type in like drawings.new. Okay, it will not show up in your browser. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Google Workspace. You have to actually go into your Google Drive and you have to hit File, New, and then Drawings. That's how you access it. Don't know why, but I guess they feel like it's not as important as the other workspaces. But Google Drawings has a purpose. I mean, it's like a virtual whiteboard. It kind of does some of the same things as Google Slides. However, you can't put things in a theme, like in the background. It's basically just a whiteboard. But I use it for a variety of things. I use it to make logos. If I want to make a logo, you can save those images as a PNG, which is that picture without backgrounds, a JPEG, PDF, a vector file, all of those things you can use in Google Drawings. You can also use their drawing feature, so the kids can draw on it. They can draw shapes and they can write their name. They can take pictures. So there's a lot of different possibilities. It does have that dead space on the sides that you can utilize. So there's a lot of ways that you can use Google Drawings. This is one of the things that I did. We were studying the different life cycles and comparing and contrasting them. So I had them compare and contrast the ladybug and the cockroach life cycles. Again, going through with Venn diagrams, I think they're super important. They have a great purpose. I think a lot of times our students don't know how to use a Venn diagram. Maybe in the upper grade levels, hopefully they do. But to teach them that these are how they are different, these are how they are similar, is an important compare and contrast skill. So I just use the dead space of that drawing for the descriptions, and then they just drag them and place them in the Venn diagram in the circle where it needed to go. I've given them blank Venn diagrams, like I've had them create a Venn diagram and told them, okay, you're going to create your boxes, you're going to type in the things, and you're going to create it. So that's another option, kind of give them that freedom to take ownership and make it themselves. So you're not actually having to make it. This is from Eric Kurtz. If you had magnetic poetry as a kid, I know I did, it's probably dating myself, but we had magnetic poetry on our refrigerator. And my siblings and I, we would make these silly stories or inappropriate stories on the refrigerator for our mom to find. And it's literally like just words that you see all the time. They're those high frequency words that you just kind of put together to make stories. This is the same kind of thing. They're using the dead space for those words, and they just drag them in to make their poem, write their story, tell the sequence to how something works, whatever you want them to do. You can change the background here. It's not really a background, it's just like an image here. So, I mean, you can change this to be whatever you want. This is just a winter scene, and they can write a story about a time that they spent in the winter, or, you know, on winter vacation, or whatever you want them to do. It's really fun, and it helps the kids to get writing, because I know a lot of times our students struggle with writing. Especially those boys, I don't know, sometimes the boys really struggle, but this is a great way to do that. You can have them drag and drop and make that story that way. Another way that you could do this is you can make it to be like emoji writing, where you supply them with different emojis, and they have to create a story using emojis, and then you share with this another student, and they have to guess what the story is. So that's another way to get them to write creatively, and to kind of get them maybe out of that writing funk. This is just another one that I use. It's just a simple T-chart, compare and contrast. All of these images are GIFs, so they move. So they were just rotating and orbiting, and the students had to drag those images to the side that it belongs in. Super easy, didn't take long to create. Sent this in Schoology as a great warm-up. We had been talking about rotation and orbiting for a couple of days, so I wanted to see where they were, send it off to them. It was a really quick warm-up. They just did it real fast, send it in, and then I could easily in Schoology just look down and see, because it's very visual. And this is a great support also for our, you know, ESL students who the reading part is hard. So this just took away a lot of the reading, and they were just focusing on the action. I did this also with moon phases. I just made a bunch of boxes, gave them their moon phases, and basically told them, I want you to create a logical moon phase sequence. So we always talk about how we start with new moon. Well, it doesn't always start new moon at the beginning of the month. So I had them create a logical sequence. It didn't matter where they started. They could have started with a waxing crescent. They could have started with a waning gibbous. Didn't matter, as long as they had them in the correct sequence order. They just did that really quickly as a warm-up after we had talked about the moon phases for several days. And then I was able to easily assess their understanding there. Okay, this is a really cool one. This is pixel art. Pixel art is using Google Sheets and formatting the cells to be a color with whatever you want. You have to, when you're formatting, like if you put in a certain number, that number is going to correlate with the color purple. Or if you put in a certain letter, that letter is going to correlate with the color red. So you're formatting your Google Sheets so that when they type in a letter or a number or a word, it's going to pop up that color. So let me show you how this works. I did grab this from Eric Kurtz because he had a great one and I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So I'm just typing in the number here and it's popping up blue because it's formatted for whatever number I put in that equals blue is going to show up blue. And then this particular number makes purple. So it was going to come up purple. I've done this where I had the students create the first letter of their first name, and then I had them calculate how many total colorful squares that they had. And then they had to give me a fraction. What fraction of your squares were pink? What fraction of your squares were blue? What, you know, that was just a really easy warm up for fractions. You could do this as if you're wanting them to create a title to a story. You could do it this way. Let them create a title like this. It's fun, it's colorful, it's unique. They could create images, they could create pictures like pigs and goats. And I mean, I've seen kids just really take off with this and they create. I mean, I just let them go. This is a great thing for STEM too. As long as you're just telling them like very clear directions, like this letter means this color. They're like, oh, okay, I can do that. And they can just be creative. But this one was actually used for like fractions and area, but you don't have to make it that way. You can make it however you want. But I thought it was just a fun little activity. So it's how do I make that? It's all in the formatting of the Google Sheet. That's a whole nother class. But it's just in the formatting. Like when you go into format, it brings up like some algorithms and some tables, and you just are simply putting like, if I put in the number 98, it's going to be green. I do this also for like, we call them quintiles at our school. So like when we are collecting data for all of the different tests that our students take, we put them in a sheet, and we have a range. Like if it's from a 90 to 100, it's going to turn up green because that's an A. So we can easily see, okay, where are our students? Did they show growth throughout the year? Like, did they go from red to orange to blue to green? That's what we want. We want to see the growth. So you can give it a range, you can give it a specific letter, specific number, and then you just tell it, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to be a color? That type of thing. But it's a whole nother training, because it does take a while to practice that. You're welcome. All right, so these are some learning apps that I've used in the classroom, especially this year because we did have some roomies and zoomies. This is called Math Toybox. I know not everybody's a math teacher, but I was teaching fractions and we were using Cuisenaire rods in the classroom. And so I was modeling with Cuisenaire rods with my students, and they were doing it on the computer. So I would tell them, okay, we're going to start with purple being the whole. Now I want you to explore and tell me which color would be half of purple. And so they were just moving things. They were, creating it. And then they were like, oh my gosh, I know it. And they would put their thumb up and they were able to tell me, which color would equal half or which color would equal thirds or fourths. So this is just a great one if you teach math. It gives them hands-on tools that they can manipulate. This is probably one of my students' favorites. This is one of my personal children's favorites. It's called Auto Draw. If you're like me, you can't draw worth anything. Obviously, I'm showing you the animation. I can't draw, but it uses AI to predict what you're drawing. So when I was drawing that cloud using my mouse, or even the touch screen on the Promethean panel or on the Google Chromebooks, it will predict, oh, were you trying to draw a cloud? And it's going to give a ribbon at the top that gives them the options of which kind of cloud you want. Oh, you're trying to draw a mountain? Oh, okay, well, maybe you want to try one of these mountains. And then it makes it pretty, and they can fill it in with different colors. They can fill in the outline. They can type. You can actually put titles. You can save it. You can share it. You can print it. My kids loved this for our STEM Fridays. They also liked it when we were creating like, and they're doing like their book reviews and stuff like that. And a lot of times my partner, she would have them create like a new cover for the book. So how would you want the cover to look if you wrote the book? And so this was a great way for those students who aren't artistically capable to have that ability to make something artistically pleasing. They just love it. They have a lot of fun with it. And it just allows them to get really creative. So auto draw, super fun. It's, if you teach elementary school, this is a great indoor recess activity too, because it keeps them busy. All right, so I told you we're getting towards the end, and I told you to talk a little bit about blended learning and some things that work for me. So I'll go quickly over some things. I know blended learning can be a little overwhelming. So if for some reason you feel like, this is too much, if you have questions, you can always email me later too. You can ask me now too, but I'm happy to share what worked for me, what didn't work for me, so that you can be successful. But I'm going to show this video. There's no sound. I took the sound off because I just wanted to show you, like, I have right now, these are students that are doing a mini lesson with me. I record mini lessons. And so at least once a week, I have them during their digital content do an additional mini lesson with me. So they're getting that small group again. They have a worksheet that they do alongside of me. These are my small group kids. They were finishing up something while I filmed. These kids were working in partner/independent activities. And then this is my future ready. So they were working on a game. They were doing like fact fluency games, and they were working together. With the sounds, it's like a low hum. You can hear the different studios. They're all talking except for the digital content because they have their headphones on. But it's like a low hum. It's very busy. There's lots of things going on. They're moving at their own pace. So the things that I would have you think about is, you know, set some guidelines. Like, how do you want the students to rotate? When do you want them to rotate? Do they have the supplies they need for each studio? Do they have the directions? Make sure you have like clear and simple directions for them to follow so they're not bugging you when you're in small group. What are the kids that finish early? What are they going to do? Because you don't want them to sit around. Do you have like maybe a choice board for them to pick different activities that extend their learning? How are they going to turn in their work? How are they going to keep their papers together? Think of those things. I have them have a folder. It's their blended learning folder. They have a finished side and a not finished side. Pretty simple. They don't finish it, it goes in the not finished. They finish it, it goes in the finished. And then I will do like I'll just tell them, okay, so today all your finished work needs to be put into the bucket, and they'll go and put it in the bucket. But I also have that in my directions. So if I need something turned in that day, it'll say in my directions, this must be turned in today. And so they know I'm done. I got to go turn it in because Miss New's gonna grade it today. So I just kind of think about all those things. And as I'm introducing blended learning and as I'm kind of giving them more control, I go over a few things at a time. I don't want to bombard them with everything. So for the first couple of days, I'm going to tell them, we're going to go over, this is how we're going to switch. This is how we're going to move around the classroom. This is what it's going to look like, what it's going to sound like. I always start off with making them rotate to a specific spot for the first 2 weeks. So I tell them, this is where you're going. This is where your group is going. And then once we kind of get that feel, then I start to say, okay, now I'm going to let you move at your own pace. I'm going to give you a timer, but I'm still going to make you go in the same order. So I'm not going to release full freedom all at once. I'm going to let them practice using their timer, moving to in the order that they need to move in. And then by the time they get good at that, I'm like, okay, you've got a timer. You know how to do the studios, you know how to move. Now you can move wherever you want. You just have to be listening for when you got to come see me, because you can't choose that. I choose that. But they have full control. Once we get to that point, it just moves so smoothly because they already know those expectations. They already know where to put things. I also give leadership opportunities. So these are some students from 2 years ago. They are modeling our leadership badges. I call them my studio experts. They light up. I got them from Amazon, and they have a pocket so you can change the lanyard. But they're my studio experts for a week. So I pick different students every week. They are the ones that if a student is having trouble with directions, or maybe there's a technology issue, those are the kids that swoop in, they help, but then they go back to their work. So every student by the end of the year, they've been an expert at least once, and they have that sense of leadership. They take ownership, but it really helps to make my classroom move a lot smoother so that I'm not having to stop, redirect, answer questions and things like that. The other thing that I have, you'll see kind of in the background here, is a progression board. And I just have like studio 1, 2, 3, 4 on there, and every student has their own number. And I have different colors for my different classes. So like my AM class might be pink and my PM class might be green. My partner does the same thing. So my homeroom, they might be always pink in my classroom, pink in her classroom, so that, you know, they don't get confused of what color they are, but they just move their number to the different studios as they complete them. So this gives me a really good visual when I'm in small group and I look over and I see, oh, number 5 is Johnny, and Johnny is on studio 3, but really, if we're thinking about how much time we've been in studios, he should be probably on studio 2. And so I can call him over and say real quickly, hey, Johnny, says you're on studio 3, tell me the studios and show me your work. And so I can do a really quick check. If he's done independent studio, I can quickly check and say, oh, you didn't do your strategies. It's not quality work. I need you to go back. Or if he did it and he's good to go, I can say, okay, great. You're good to go. You're kind of ahead. So make sure that when you're done, you go to the choice board and you pick a choice board activity. So that just kind of gives me a really good quick visual to see where my kids are. It also helps the students to kind of self-reflect. When they see students that are finishing up a lot faster than they are, then they're like, oh, I might be not using my time wisely. And so it kind of gives them a little nudge to kind of get on the ball and do what they need to do. But they tattle on each other, and they'll tell me, they're like, so-and-so, they're on their fourth studio and they shouldn't be because I saw their work. It was not good work. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good to know. So, I mean, it gives them their own reflection, self-reflection, but it also helps them to keep each other accountable. All right, so let's recap. We covered a lot of stuff this morning. And before we got started, I asked you to think of a concept that you were going to be teaching this year and think about how maybe implementing some touchscreen would help your students be more engaged and have that more collaboration. So I hope you've kept that thing in mind and you've come away with some ideas that you can implement in your classroom. In a minute, I am going to go into Schoology and I will publish the attendance. Just a really quick reminder, attendance is required. It will ask for your name and your email, and then you need to do the 2 questions. So I will get that up here in a minute. The feedback form is also required. It's anonymous, however. So in Schoology, I did create a discussion. So if you will, after you've done the feedback form, just type in the discussion done so I can match like my numbers. I want to make sure I have the same number of attendance forms with the same number of feedback forms. Okay. And then that's pretty much it. I just really appreciate you guys. Oops, I clicked on something. Go back. That's it. I appreciate you guys being here with me today. Thank you for learning with me. I hope you walked away with some great tips. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. Email me. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to answer those questions. I do have one question here in the chat that I'll look at. And then I will stop sharing and I'll start recording here in a second. So the question is, so they move on their own. You don't have a station rotation with timers. I start off with timing everybody. So I will have a timer on the board and it's 12 minutes and I'll tell them, okay, it's time to rotate. And then I tell them where to go. And then as we get really good at that, I give them individual timers and I actually open them up. I cut the sound wire from them so they don't beep all day, but they have to look at them. And so they just keep their timer and move around with their timer. They set it for 12 minutes and then that's how they move. I do on my Promethean, if I'm not doing a future ready activity on my Promethean panel, I do keep another timer on the board. I just have it. I have the timer with the classroom screen with just simple directions. And I did that and I didn't put it over the whole board. I just did it in the corner. And I did that just for my students that needed to quick visual because I still had students keep looking up because it's bigger and they wanted to make sure they were on time with me because they didn't want to miss small group. That was the thing is they were like, I just don't want to miss small group. And I'm like, you're not going to miss it because even if you're in the middle of a studio, like if they just started and I call them, they knew to pause their time, come see me, and then they would start their time when they go back to that studio. So, but I still had those kids that were like, I want to make sure I'm still on the right time. But then for my Zoomies, I also just shared that portion of my screen with them so that they knew where we were in the classroom too, because the Zoomies, they're doing their own studios too on their own and keeping a timer, but I needed them to also see, where we were. And I would type to them, okay, I just started my 3rd small group. I just started my 2nd small group so that they knew about how much time I had left. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, good. All right, I am going to stop recording and go ahead.